And then moving on to item 23. Pauline, do you want to introduce this one as well, please?
Nice visuals on the attachments to the agenda for this, which I think are really helpful. So the main features of this, as on page 3196.2, are the two signalised cycle and pedestrian crossings, one on Armagh Street, going from, I guess it's Cambridge over to Victoria Square, and one on Colombo. Now these have been strategically placed on the desire lines, and also the existing on-street cycle lanes going along Armagh have been removed to provide wider footpaths, and also to keep the cyclists away from the tram tracks, because they're proving to be quite an issue for cyclists. In the note, number 2 is the parking restriction subcommittee also approved the parking and stopping restrictions as per 5.6. That meeting was held a couple of days after this one. The allocation of parking has been determined in accordance with the council parking strategy, which prioritises mobility, PT, loading and short stay parking in commercial areas. One committee member voted against the plan solely because, and it was Aaron, because he thought there was insufficient mobility parking. But the mobility parking actually turns out to be sitting at a ratio of 1:8. But as a result of that, the ITI committee has requested a workshop on mobility parking. Noting too, the vanilla ice remains in place, yay. And also the other change, because the committee had a workshop on this, which was fantastic, with Otakaro, and we were criticised the square shape of some of the curbing on Colombo Street, the concrete curbing. So we suggested we didn't want a repeat of one other area in Christchurch that we're all familiar with, so we requested the curbs be rounded, and Otakaro were happy with that, so that's been altered, so you'll know that you'll notice that they've been rounded now. And all the costs are met by Otakaro, but the OPEX is the City Council. So I think those are the main points, and the committee voted to support this project.
Thank you. Are there questions on this item? Yanni.
Yeah, I emailed these through. Do we have a safety order on the design? Because it inherently looks quite dangerous for heavy vehicles turning, particularly with the increased traffic for the convention centre.
Mr. Chairman, through you, we do have a safety audit. We've just received the safety audit. The main access to the convention centre is Durham, left into Armagh. Armagh Bridge has been upgraded to Class 1, 44 tonne, right into the convention centre, and then through the convention centre, left out onto Colombo Street. So that's the main access through to for heavy vehicles to the convention centre, and we are aware that they'll probably need some gap in parking on the east side of Colombo Street where it exits just down from the hotel.
So just when you look at the Colombo Street Armagh intersection, it's very hard to see how, you know, buses and trucks will traverse that safely. Can they turn into the appropriate lane without going onto the other lane? And have you done it for the, you know, the big buses and the big trucks that would service the convention centre?
Service the
convention centre.
Yeah. So okay.
I mean, we can't require them only to come in Durham Street, and past experience in this location has shown that it's a real magnet for tourist buses.
We've just received the tracking from Otakaro. They tracked that with an 11-metre rigid truck. That has some issues. Looking at the tracking and the curb we've received from the safety audit, if the 11-metre rigid has some issues, we would actually have to ask them to run a larger vehicle around that intersection. But we've only just received it, Yanni.
Well, how can we be approving something without that sort of information?
To Colombo Street.
So we've heard that you've got a safety audit which has got no concerns, but at the same time it sounds as though you do have concerns because of the information that you've just provided.
Well, I think the design only includes an 11-metre length vehicle, so it doesn't include a big B train. So what we have to do is just double check that the convention centre is intending to be serviced only with vehicles up to that length.
It would appear.
That they've designed, you know, Otakaro have done the design, they're also designing the convention centre. So we just need to confirm that they aren't intending to get B-train vehicles in.
If we were to...
Lessons from St Esther Street. It'd be really good for us to get circulated the safety audit.
If we were to defer a decision on this item until we'd got that further piece of information, what would be the implications of that be, given that this is our last council meeting until the end of January?
Well, they're cracking on with the work now, and they would have to leave the site, and it would probably be a few months before they started again.
Yeah, so it would cause delays is the answer.
It would cause some serious
Okay,
delays, yeah.
thank you.
Proviso in there, providing there are no B trains bigger than 11 metres.
So there are B trains, so just make it very clear. 11 metre is a rigid truck. The tracking that has been done that we've only just received and we're only just aware of it is an 11 metre rigid truck. So we're talking about Colombo Street right into to the convention centre. So we need to confirm the tour coaches and the trucks coming down Colombo Street South right into Armagh Street. There is no issue with them coming down Durham, Armagh and right into the convention, so we need to confirm that. And we would just do, we could do tracking in that within half an hour with the caddy. They can go another way, but yeah.
So
can we legally prohibit them from using this intersection?
We can legally prohibit any vehicle from using any intersection. We can do that, but that's not before you today.
So, and then just the final question I had was the emergency services. So, have we got any written confirmation from emergency services about the design and their feedback?
So Otakaro, when your questions came through, Yanni, Otakaro have stated re-emergency service consultation for parking resolution occurred, reading as it says, with Chief Fire Officer, Christchurch Central Fire Station, Commander of the New Zealand Police, Al Stewart, and the Operations Manager of St John's, and they were all happy with that.
Okay, thank you. So now I've got Mike, Tim and Dion. Mike.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions. Firstly, is one, I guess, around process, because obviously work's currently being undertaken on this stretch of road. What would happen if we said no to this resolution, considering that work is quite progressed?
So, Mr Chair, through you, the agreement with, it'll take a little minute to get to where we're going here. The agreement with the rebuild of the city is that Sarah in the day was delivering some projects, and then council with its ASC was funding some. When we talk about this particular project, initially council were to fund Colombo and Armagh Street, and Otakaro were building the squares, alluded to in the report. That money was changed over to Sarah before it became Otakaro. That was agreed on, so they are delivering as part of the government side of the thing. So it's really the government mandate that's already been agreed. They are delivering this project. Our role here, or council's role, is to approve the on-street restrictions, as in controls and parking of that project that they're delivering.
Yeah, it just seems like, just doesn't seem to be right, in my opinion, but because obviously it's quite far down, and so basically all we can do is approve these resolutions, but because of the fact that it's there, it's just, to me it does not work. As good process should work, this does not work, and we should have been resolving these before the work actually begun.
So going back to, again, Victoria Square, when it first started, there was some issues with the redesign, and correct me if I'm wrong, a Victoria Square working group was set up that was agreed to that it was refurbishment of the square, not a redesign of the square. Now that was agreed to. We're rebuilding a city. We're not in a normal process of, in this case, it's government through their agency, Sarah, down to Otakaru, delivering these projects in Christchurch. It's not normal process.
No, I know it's not normal process, but I would hope as we move forward, we actually try and make the process work a bit better. And quite frankly, even when you look at the street, it's going to be closed for 6 months. That's a massive amount of time for actually a small stretch of road. And we're seeing it across the city when we have Otakaru doing roading projects. They're taking too long and they're making our city come to a standstill. And I think it's something we need to address.
Point of order, Mr Chairman. Are we into debate?
We're
Sorry,
not.
I was just going back to my questions. Furthermore, Colombo Street obviously was sort of signalled as the cycling street. Are we looking at putting sharrows? Is this resolution actually allowed to put sharrows down this part of Colombo Street?
So so that's not include sharrows. Not a this doesn't need to be a resolution to put sharrows in a street. So a sharrow is not a control. It's not where a cycle symbol in a dedicated cycle lane gives the legal meaning to the cycle lane that a vehicle cannot enter it. That's a control. But a sharrow, as in a shared lane, does not require resolution of council. That was how the sharrow was approved nationally.
Okay, so therefore, if we want to get a sharrow, say from the start of the 30k point of Colombo Street right around to where the sharrows begin after Hereford Street, what do we need to do to get that action?
Through the chair, government, when they approved the National Sharrows trial, put out a draft Sharrows got to the issue Sharrows. That states, so you're correct with the 30k, it states that Sharrows should not be used in areas over 50k, and then it depends on volumes. And one of the things that is important with Colombo Street is that we maintain those lower volumes, so a sharrow would be a safe cycling infrastructure.
Okay, follow that up with staff. Last question, and on page 326 of our agenda, it has a picture, obviously, of the Colombo Street, where the cycle and pedestrian crossing is, and it's offset to Oxford Terrace. So I bike down there quite frequently, and as I'm going past there, the actual crossing is not offset. It's directly on the Oxford Terrace. I'm just trying to work out what's sort of happening with that.
Yeah. I don't believe the curb line in Oxford Terrace, you're talking about Oxford east of Colombo Street?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't believe that's been completed yet. Last time I was there, the curb
line.
Yeah,
it's just that when you're on the north lane, basically the entering onto Oxford Terrace, the cycleway is basically, or pedestrian is directly opposite that lane. So is it going to be shifted, or because it's clearly offset in this?
Yeah. So the cycle lane is on the south side of the Oxford intersection, and the intersection, so that section of Oxford is being built like the shed zones out here, so you'll find that it will be all tiled and there'll be a small entrance, and vehicle movements, I believe, on that are only westbound.
Okay.
Thank you. Tim.
Thank you. Steve, could you ask Otakaru, because when they first came in with their design for the convention centre, I'd have to say this is an improvement of the old one, because the old one was an absolute dog. When Peterborough Street, trying to get an 11-metre truck, let alone a B train, God forbid, any time outside the small hours of the morning was an absolute nightmare. But with regards to this, with an 11-metre truck or a B train or whatever, when they first came and talked about the convention centre, I asked them if they would talk to the production side, because with all due respect, again, I don't think anyone here drives a B train or an 11-metre truck. So although with all the measurements, etc., I would like to know from Otakaru that they have talked to the deliverers and the production companies, etc., to get an idea that this is really going to work, because I have really concerns, because the last one was a dog, although it worked because you made it work, but it was a nightmare, to be quite honest. So this is an improvement, but I do want to know that they have done what we have asked them to do.
Tim, one thing I'm not sure if I can check, but sometimes when you run a tracking circle for a vehicle, sometimes some of the worst vehicles for turning circles can be. So Otakaru may come back to us, and I will definitely check.
Thank you.
Sometimes the dual steering 11-metre trucks, you know, the two wheels in the front, are some of the worst on the road. So they can have the worst steer. So if they've used that vehicle, that I'm just reading straight off what we see here.
Yep.
But I will definitely check and get back.
I mean, because let's be honest, with a B train or whatever, most intersections in the central city, you've got to cross the lines. It's just the way it is. I mean, it's designed for predominantly cars, but a big truck's a big truck. But thank you, if you could, Steve, thank you very much.
Thank you. Dion. Well, we're not quite there yet because I've got a question from Sarah, but I'll note that you're happy to move this. That's great. Sarah.
Thanks. Just following on just one process thing. Are there any other similar projects where Otakaro is in charge of the design but will be asked to do the road controlling authority stuff coming up? And if there are you able to come to us earlier with these things or not?
Yeah. Through the chair, there is a number of projects coming up. The whole of the East Frame, Hereford Bridge out here, and Cambridge Terrace between Kilmore and that's east of Colombo Street, the section outside the Band Rotunda is coming to you, and I think there's a little bit of the lane still that has to come, and we, as agreed through the committee, will be having workshops on every one of those.
Yeah, but those workshops need to be early enough. So what we've got here is that the government and Otakaro are able to do things that local government can't do, and I'm not sure that they understand that. So as local government, we have to be open to be able to decide not to do something at every decision when we get to the decision-making point. But what's happening is that these things are coming so late, work is underway, there are signals in already that mean that we're effectively rubber stampers, and actually that's not allowable under the Local Government Act. We need to know enough about what's happening about these things so that we can be free to decide not to early enough in the process. Otherwise, we're not meeting our legal obligations, and that's quite different to the obligations that central government have, and I frequently think that isn't understood at all by central government and those who work for them. So, I mean, we should be able to be free. Is this a question? Yes. Yes.
Is it leading to a question?
Are they aware of that?
So taking that on board, we can work with Otakaro in the beginning of next year, and they have no problem with fronting up with a workshop and bringing those earlier in the new year before the reports come through.
So can I just check on the agreement then? So with the delivery being done by the Crown and by the council, does Otakaro actually have the ability to sign off on the whole design of it, and council just the road controlling authority controls? Because all of the other projects we actually sign off on the sort of concept design first.
Stephen, do you
want to my understanding is through the JTRP, right back in the days of Sarah.
Yeah.
All of the AAC works. Which, if you want to
I can try and answer that if that's okay. So
historically,
we had a structure set up whereby it would go through a technical review panel, then up through the project control group, project steering group, and we'd bring it through a workshop into council for your approval before the work started. But we're dependent on Otakaro bringing their information to us so we can then bring it to you. So that's the situation we're in at the moment. We've received this recently, and now we're bringing it to you to seek the resolutions for the work that's still underway. They are aware that that makes these things at risk. But that's the risk that they take in getting into this.
Yeah, but no one at council needs to sign off, or does someone have the delegation to sign off on the actual design?
What we've previously done is certainly bring them through the council for sign off. So we've had a pretty thorough process in place. So it was not just the resolutions per se, although it did include the resolutions, but I think if you think about the ones such as Manchester and Cambridge Durham, the full design came before council for approval, so you had the plans which showed what it was going to look like, and that had all the the plethora of resolutions required to legalise it. And then once that happened, they went through a tendering process
so why hasn't
for
that
the contract.
Happened now?
I can't answer that, but all we have done is bring it to you once we've received it, I think, and so we've been encouraging them to bring that to council.
So no one has signed off on the design? We're just being asked to do the road controlling?
On the technical content of the design, that will have been passed and through the relevant technical officers.
Yeah.
So technically, correct, from your curbing types, your drainage type, your signals, all the technical elements will have been reviewed by council officers.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily cover the technical concept or the concept.
Yeah, the
design.
concept design.
So I think it's important that I mean, what we're talking about now is the more general, how do these kind of projects get approved and what's the process? I think if there was a need for a detailed discussion on that, that would be better had at the committee as a way of understanding how we could get better information earlier, or what the limitations of our decision making are for future processes. What we've got in front of us today is a set of recommendations that we've already heard what the implications are if we don't approve them. We've got to where we've got to. Where we need to get to today is either approving this or not, so that we can move on.
I think in all fairness, Mr Chair, we did discuss that issue of timing at the workshop. And we have made that clear that it would be good to get it a little bit earlier. But at the end of the day, we are legislating this. And also, we did make some changes, albeit minor. And if we wanted to make major changes, I suppose we could now. We'll just delay it all. But the committee was supportive of this at both the workshop and at the meeting the other day, and I can't see any issue with it today.
And I'm not hearing anybody moving any substantive amendments to this either.
Oh, so I'm happy. Oh, you've moved it.
No, I'm happy. So Dion had indicated he was going to move it. Pauline,
I'm happy to second.
You'll second?
That's fine.
Okay, great. So is there any debate on this? So Sarah, Dion, Sarah.
Just really briefly, I mean, I'm comfortable with this design. I'm comfortable with the way changes and things, but I'm really uncomfortable that I've been put into a position where the information has come so late that there is almost no option but to approve it, and that process I'm really unhappy with. And should that happen again, I'm likely to vote against it, because we wouldn't have the opportunity to sign off on the concept design. So, yeah.
Thank you. Dion.
I think this has to go through, because the work may actually finish before Christmas, or the two roads might actually open in the next few days. They've been busting their backsides to get that done. But the thing is here that if we roll back a little bit, I just wanted to make sure that people were aware of what's going on here. Otakaro are charged with, and it's contractually written in, that they're charged to do the roadsides of any anchor projects. So they were going to do the side of the road of Colombo and Armagh Street, but not the other side of the road. And that side, the sides that they were doing was $3.5 million. They've actually said, well, we will actually do the whole road. They don't have to, it's not part of their agreement, and they're paying for it. So they're saving us they're actually saving the ratepayers $3 million or something close to that for doing this, and that's why it's come to, well, that's from what I understand is why it's come to us like this. So the process is a bit, annoying, because it is like our hand has been forced, but we do not have any control over what Otakaro do on their side of the anchor projects. That's the way that the Central City Recovery Plan, Accessible City thing has been written. That's the agreement that we have, apparently. But we do have control over the side, and we do have to sign off on the side that we are responsible for, which is the other side. But we're saving quite a considerable amount of money for the ratepayers here, so I actually want to see this go through, get it done, and actually look forward to Victoria Square opening early next year, and that road, it'll look absolutely beautiful.
Great, thank you. Phil.
Mr. Chairman, I think there's been some confusion about these processes, because certainly I recall that when the committee dealt with the hospital corner, we hadn't had a workshop, and we spent 2 hours really working through with the Otakaro staff and our own staff to find some resolution, and that was a laborious process. However, we have had a workshop on this item, and there's been a lot of opportunity for the committee members to actually discuss it. So I'm a wee bit mystified. I'm aware this is a long agenda, but there's been a lot of Otakaro items. So I just think that altogether, yep, this has gone faster than perhaps people would have liked, but there's good reason to actually progress it. And I think, to be fair to Otakaro, they did respond by actually running us a workshop, and I think that's fair to just comment on.
Aaron and then Mike. Aaron.
Yeah, I voted against it at committee level. I'll vote against it again today.
Yeah, percentage-wise, the number of disability car parks or mobility car parks has gone up, but it's still 3 for the whole area. There's one, and there should be some end up in the convention centre, but we haven't seen that. We don't know what that number is, but there'll be one there. So if you've got a convention with a couple of thousand people, let's just hope it's not disability related, because one can go. And then up by the town hall, there's 2. So I don't know, that's not a level of service that I want to see. That doesn't create equity in the city. But also, that number, percentage-wise, has changed because we've taken out so many car parks along Colombo and Armagh Street. They were all car parks, both sides of the road, and they were full. Whenever there's a concert at the town hall, they were full. Whenever there's an event in Victoria Square, they were full. And so, if the city becomes successful going forward, not quite sure where everyone's going to park. And then my last point is on in the parking strategy that hasn't been done for the north of the city yet. They'll park in there somewhere. But the other one is, and once all these sites are built out, so 10 years, but buses going to the convention centre. If you have a successful convention with a couple of thousand people, and then and a successful one to me is where they go and do day activities, you line up 50 buses to try and clear people from the convention centre, and you want to do a turnaround time of about 30 minutes. I've never seen that traffic management plan for the convention centre, so I think excursions from conventions in Christchurch are going to be quite flawed. Just throwing it out there.
Thank you. Mike and then Yanni.
Thank you. I will be supporting this. I'm not happy with the process, but I want to address a couple of things, and I won't go into too much detail, but I really think councillors should actually check their facts before they start spouting off in public. Some of the statements you've made are actually incorrect. And also, I suggest actually you should have a walk down Colombo Street and see actually the amount of work that's gone underway before this has come to council, before it come to our workshop to actually look at. So I will support this because really we don't have much choice. But once again, we need to actually get this done better in the future. We need to have more say at the start of these projects before they come to us when the work's already underway for us to make decisions that we can't really go back on because of the work. Quite frankly, and I said it before, Otakaro have caused us nothing but headaches. They are going so slow around this city, it's a joke. They should be working night and day to get their streets open, and they're not. Something needs to change, and it needs to change soon, because people are getting frustrated and to the point of breaking. We need our city back, and we need the work completed quickly.
Yanni.
Yeah, I mean, I totally endorse what's been said there. It always struck me as surreal that you need a government department to build local roads in a city, and playgrounds, when council's been doing that for 100 years. So it just, I think I totally agree that it's ridiculous to get this after work has already been so far down the track. But I won't be supporting it. I think you need to vision what will happen when the convention centre's built, when the town hall's reopened, and all the stuff in terms of the performing arts precinct. And the traffic that's going to be in this area is going to be extraordinary. And often those places will have multiple events on at the same time. And we're taking away car parking. We're not, I don't think, adequately providing for the heavy vehicles that will go through this area. And we don't seem to have any traffic management that makes any sense for this massive convention centre that's being built. And the last thing I want to do is create an inaccessible city, and a city that becomes more dangerous because we're not being realistic about the quantum of traffic that will be going through this area. So I think there's a lot more things that we should be looking at here, possibly one-waying Armagh Street in certain directions if there's issues with the turning. I think we definitely, as councillors, should have learnt from St Asaph Street that we actually should see the safety audit before we approve these sorts of designs and restrictions, so that we don't have to. I mean, people said, what's the cost of delaying it, not approving it today? Well, what's the cost of doing it, getting it wrong, and then having to come back like we did in St Asaph Street? It's a lot more, I would suggest, than actually getting it right the first time. So I just don't think this design adequately addresses the significant use that will be occurring at this intersection with all the new developments that are happening in this area. And I totally concur with Aaron in terms of where is the car parking in this area. We haven't got any car parking, off-street car parking at all. And so why would we remove so many of the car parks now ahead of things like the convention centre even being built? Why not leave the car parking there until it's actually, close to completion rather than remove it right now? So that just hurts those local businesses that have invested in the central city, and we heard that through the submission, so I won't be supporting it.
Pauline.
Quickly, look, the committee was looked on this quite favourably. Yes, there is parking loss, but this is a city of the future. This is the way we're going. Where there are suggestions of parking buildings going in around here. There is a parking plan to be done. So parking will be addressed, but there's other ways to get into the city. And, you know, what do we want, a congestion tax or something in the future? This is going to be a difficult area to drive around. So that you find another way to get in. There's lots of ways. So I think this is, I agree with everything Dion said. I think it's going to be wonderful. The whole Victoria Square project was an amazing collaborative piece of work that had a good outcome regarding the new design or the reformation of it. And these traffic works, providing, as Mike said, they can get them done quickly. That's the key, I agree with that. It's going to be a really good result for the city, and this is going to be a beautiful area. So please support it.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? No. Do you want those votes recorded? So if we can note those, so Yanni and Aaron voted against. So that's carried. So I'll now adjourn the meeting. We're at 12:15. I'll adjourn the meeting until 2 o'clock, when we'll come back with the Mayor and the Chair. And